Welcome to the Preferred Walk-On Show. I'm your host, Seth Saunders, joined as always by my co-host, James Kim. Well, brother, new year and new segments for us. We are going to preview each conference, and we are kicking off the conference previews this year with the ACC. And I told you on our last episode, I was very excited to talk about the ACC because I think it's going to be extra spicy. And you seem very underwhelmed with my enthusiasm about the Atlantic Coast Conference. So where are you sitting on it right now? Are you
Oh,
lukewarm?
it's the ACC. I'm always lukewarm.
Dude, I think there are some really, really interesting storylines in this conference as we move forward. Look, if we're looking back at last year, right, kind of a wild ending to their conference year because I think the expectation all year with how Cam Ward and Miami looked is they're just kind of going to coast right into Charlotte in the ACC title game and go to the playoffs. And Cam Ward was one of the sensations of college football last year after the transfer into Coral Gables, and it just didn't happen, man. They fell flat on their face, and the ACC title game ends up being SMU, who was one of I thought, the cooler stories of the year, especially after their entry into the ACC, where they essentially said, hey, man, y'all just keep the TV money for a little while. We're all right. We just want to come into conference.
Yeah.
And it lands them in the college football playoff year one after a heartbreaking loss to Clemson. And then for Clemson, think about this, man. I was thinking about this getting ready for the show and previewing them from last year. Dude, their narrative completely shifted with one 56-yard kick in Charlotte in early December, right? Because they missed that. They missed the playoffs, and it's another, well, we're not where we think we should be. We're not the elite Clemson that won 2 national titles. And I think there's probably a lot of hand-wringing in that fan base about where the program is, what the trajectory is. Has Dabo lost a step? He won't do the transfer portal, blah, 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 right? And here we go. One big monster kick from past midfield vaults them into the college football playoff. They play, I would say, pretty well. Played with some moxie and fought down in Austin when they played Texas. Still don't know that game was ever, should we say, in question. I mean, I know it got tight, but I don't think anybody was ever like, oh, Texas is about to lose this football game.
It was the most competitive of that weekend's games, I'll say.
Yes, that's fair. Yeah, no, 100% that's fair. Although that's not really saying
a whole lot.
But you're right. That's absolutely right. That was the most, I think, compelling game of the day. But, dude, now you got them coming into this season as, in a lot of people's minds, the favorite to win the conference. And, obviously they have Kate Klubnik returning, who I thought played better and better as the year went on. I just still think, even as I was looking through trying to get ready for this, I still think they have question marks. And so I still don't know offensively what they're going to be. Like, is everything going to be on Kate Klubnik's shoulders? Is he going to be chartered with throwing the ball a ton and doing stuff with his legs? Or is it going to be balanced and they're going to look to establish the run and run the football? I certainly think they will. History would say yes to that, right? And then I think the question becomes who's going to be that bell cow for them. Then you got Carson Beck transferring from Athens down to Coral Gables, play quarterback for Miami, coming off the arm injury, and obviously whirlwind offseason for Carson. Had some things happen in his first up with his girl. One of the motivations for going to Coral Gables, although I was always of the opinion it was probably the $4 million. That was the motivation.
Yeah.
So Miami brings back a ton on their offensive line. I think they're certainly an interesting team to watch in that conference. Louisville brings in Miller Moss from USC. Brian Brahms obviously had a ton of success with quarterback play there. They were a couple plays last season away from being in that conversation too, right? So I think they got a lot to discuss. Georgia Tech bringing Haynes King back. They dropped one in Athens they should have won, which certainly would have catapulted them into probably the offseason of all off seasons from their fan base feeling like things were turning the corner and going somewhere. But I think there's a lot of optimism in Atlanta for that ball club and everything Brent Key's doing there. Dude, Florida State, what are they going to be, right? Historic faceplant last year after, an incredible year where they get left out of the playoffs. Their offense, brother, was painful to watch last year.
That's an understatement.
Oh, boy. I mean, it was like nails on a chalkboard watching that offense. They bring in Gus Malzahn to run the offense, who leaves UCF, which is like becoming a thing now. Is he going to be the Chip Kelly of this year, where he comes in and kind of buoys one side of the football and Florida State is rocking and rolling again? What they brought Tommy Castellanos in from Boston College, who I think Gus had originally recruited at UCF. A lot of things swirling there. Florida State brought in a ton of folks in the transfer portal. So things going to be interesting in Tallahassee. Whether or not Mike Norvell, how hot Mike Norvell's seat is if they have another bad year this year. And then look, man, SMU, who was in the conference championship game last year, brings back, I think, one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in the United States, and a roster that probably is feeling themselves, right, after the year they had last year, even though they got absolutely thumped in Happy Valley. But anyways, and Duke, we're not even covering a number of other things that are going on. I think Duke's an interesting team. UNC, we talked about last week with Chapel Bill. Like, dude, just tons and tons of stuff. So I'm going to stop talking now. But there's just, again, I told you, I was excited about the ACC. There is a lot to talk about.
There's a lot of storylines, yeah. You touched on a couple of them. I'll start with Clemson. We talked a little bit about this because it's kind of hard to gauge it, but with the production coming back, Clemson has 80% of their offensive production coming back. Which historically is something you look towards. But really, what is Clemson's offensive identity? You hit on that. Is it going to be solely relying on Cade Klubnik this year? So the next closest in the conference is Tech. Georgia Tech is going to rely solely on if Haynes King stays healthy. I know the backup is highly touted, and he looked good in spot duty last year when King was hurt. But that team is an entirely different animal when Haynes King is healthy. As far as the rest of it, I think Louisville is the most intriguing team for me. Their schedule really lines up well. I think they do go to Clemson, but they get Miami at home. And after that, they play pretty much the bottom half of the conference. Everyone's conference schedule, I think they have the most favorable conference schedule. They go to Miami, they get Clemson at home. Everyone else, they play the bottom half of the conference. So I think, if they split those, I think they go 8-1 in the conference, pretty much, if they are who we think they are. So yeah. I like Louisville a lot this year.
What do you think about Miller Moss?
I like Miller Moss, and I think Braum gets the most out of who he has. He always gets the most out of who he has. Whatever that person's going to be, he seems to get that out of them. So I like Miller Moss. I was surprised at the transfer though, because that USC team, while not very good, Lincoln Riley always the quarterback guru. So it kind of like that relationship seemed to sour quick last year. I think the expectations were way too high for that team, and they just kind of fell off when they lost a couple of games. With Clemson's schedule, it's doesn't look that daunting to me when I look at it. So their schedule, I'm talking about conference schedule, let's be realistic. Their two toughest games are LSU and at South Carolina. And in the conference, they go to at Louisville, and they're at Georgia Tech. But if Clemson is Clemson of old, they should win those games handedly. I'm not sure if Clemson is Clemson of old. I personally don't think they are. I think that team last year was a lot of smoke and mirrors. They really, the conference championship game was a perfect encapsulation of their season. Really hot in the first half, fell off in the second half, and found a way to win at the end. That's perfectly encapsulated their season. So my main storylines for this season, though, I think Norvell is on the hot seat. I think he could be one of the first coaches gone if they do not rebound. And I think they have to rebound hard. I know the buyout's a lot, but I'm not sure who you replace him with. But if you look at his tenure there, other than that 2-season stretch, what has he done?
Yeah, I mean, nothing.
Nothing. So, and Florida State always has high expectations. So obviously, we talked about Belichick last week. We don't need to rehash that. They also have a very intriguing schedule. I'm just not sure how talented they are and how Bill is going to translate to the college game. Let's just say it for what it is. My most intriguing thing really is what Syracuse does this year.
Yeah.
So they had a very good season last year. I think Fran Brown is one of the up and coming coaches in the country. You know, when it was at Georgia for one season, secondary coach, learned under Kirby. I like the way he talks. Everything he says is the right thing. Now, what was last year a flash in the pan, or is that going to translate? They have a very tough schedule this year in conference. Most of their tough games are on the road. They got a new quarterback to transfer from Notre Dame, Steve Angeli. I like what they do with NIL. Like, you've heard the players, like, he finds them NIL money if they're late, if they do bad in class. Like, I like the way they approach that. So I'm not sure if he's ever going to build Syracuse into a powerhouse, but I like what he's doing. As far as Miami, man, does a team have a schedule set up better for them than Miami? They don't leave Florida until November. I mean, now they play some tough teams, but they don't leave the state of Florida until November. So I think their offense is going to put up a lot of points. I think Beck is going to have a phenomenal season. It's not going to come down to the offense. It's not going to come down to Beck. It's going to come down to what Mario Cristobal does. He's the ACC's James Franklin. That's really what it's come down to.
Boy.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not saying one thing or the other. I'm just telling the masses that for my boy to make that comparison, that is the shot across the bow of all shots across the bow.
I like Cristobal. I like Cristobal as a coach, but if you're going to talk the talk, you got to back it up with something. He's never won anything like that. I don't like coaches like that. If you're going to talk a lot of talk, you got to back it up. And he's never won anything. So,
dude, I do think, and you're right, their schedule is set up really well from the perspective that they stay in the Sunshine State. But there are some early tests for them, but those tests are out of conference. So, they open with Notre Dame, who we'll have to figure out where we're going to talk about the Irish. Maybe we talk about them amongst all of the episodes, but they're interesting to me, okay? Because they obviously make the run last year. There's a ton of momentum in that program. But I go back to even within their run. Dude, did you ever look at that team and go, boy, I'm scared of that offense? Boy,
no, never.
Never. And I feel like they have more question marks. Well, they do. It's not I feel like. Dude, who's going to play quarterback?
Who's going to play quarterback?
And this is what I go back to with all these teams, and I hate to oversimplify this, and I'm going to bring this up inevitably when we talk about the Big Ten, but it's like, who has a quarterback, and this is really nationwide, brother, that you feel convicted in, where you're like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna hang my hat with him. Like he's gonna be the guy. And
this is the first time in a long time that it's like that, though. Like with so much turnover at the quarterback position, when's the last time you felt like this? 2020. Other than T-Law, like T-Law was the guy in 2020, and I can't think of every other major team that had turnover.
Yeah,
that was after Burrow, after Tua, after all those guys. T-Law was the guy, and then everyone else was a nobody. Then really, you didn't know what Mac Jones was going to be. Georgia had no quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you're looking at like obviously Arch is getting a ton of juice, and
but he's still new. He's still new though.
Yeah,
he's a new starter. He's a first-year starter. So many first-year starters.
So then I'm going to draw back to what you mentioned already with Miami. I think in a lot of ways, if he is healthy, I mean, it's not even really in a debate. If he is healthy, Carson Beck is the most seasoned quarterback in college football. Hard stops. Like, you can make an argument about Drew Aller all you want, and like experience-wise, maybe you can make the argument, but I'm talking about A, experience, plus B, the ability to do things that makes him NFL projectable. Carson is the fullest package for that currently. in college football? No? Like, who would you put above him from experience, battle-tested? Dude, he's been under all the bright lights that you have to be under. So, like, I don't know, man. I feel like if
he has better measurables, but Carson has better measurables, but I would say that Cade has more experience. Cade's been a starter longer.
Longer, but I would say that let's just say the miles are different. Is that fair?
Well, yes, but I think Cade's more athletic than Carson.
Sure.
Carson's sneaky athletic, but Cade, it's like you know that he's athletic. You know he can run. Carson, it's always a surprise when Carson runs.
And look, I want to be clear. I'm not making the argument that of all the quarterbacks across America, Carson is the best returning quarterback in America. I'm not saying
no. And I'm not saying Cade's the best either. So
no, what I'm saying is that if we put them all in a lineup and we compare big time games they've had to be in, had the keys to a big time program, have had pressure foisted upon them, had all these preseason expectations, been through the ringer, right? I don't know if there's any guy in America that's been through what he has been from that standpoint. Now look.
Well, yeah, I mean, top 2, 3.
Arch is his own animal because just given the family name, there's some inherent pressure there, right? But I'm just talking about that has played snaps and has been involved in monster contests with high stakes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So if you want a comparison with those two, the only real comparison then wouldn't even be Klubnik. It could be Nussmeier.
Yeah, and man, even Nussmeier is like LSU hasn't during his starting tenure really been.
They haven't been up to that, but I'm saying that if you want the matchup wise, he's played in the same type of style games that Carson has. He hasn't played in the SEC Championship, but he's played in, top 5 matchups constantly, top 10 matchups constantly, whereas Klubnik hasn't.
I just feel like he has kind of been, and he's brought a lot of this on himself, right? The narrative has not been greater on Carson, and he obviously did not do himself any favors on his way out the door in Athens last year, okay? So there's a lot of tangential stuff around him that affects the picture and affects the narrative, and I'm cognizant of all that, and I'm okay with all that. But all I'm saying is I think in some ways in the broader college football conversation, they're kind of sneaking under the radar a little bit, given what they added in him. Now, the big time if in this is if he is healthy, okay? But, dude, if he's healthy, he makes every throw on the field. And Mario Cristobal's bag is the offensive line. So you have to think the offensive line picture, you would hope, given what they return, is going to look a lot better than what his offensive line picture was at Georgia last year. And he has shown that when he's not pressured, pretty darn good, Yeah. And that's the big rub with him, is if their offensive line keeps him clean, he's going to be a problem. That's hard stop. He's shown that. We talked about this last year. Remember I told you I saw that Nick Saban clip during College Game Day when they were in Tuscaloosa, and he's running through this highlight package, and he's like, if he is clean, he's great. And I kept going, ooh, that didn't make me feel good. Coach Saban trying to say that if you pressure him at all, he stinks. And that turned out to be exactly right. Like, if you make him move around, he stinks. He will pee on himself. Like, it is what it is. Yep. And so if they can keep him clean, they're going to be a problem. But you're right, man. That schedule's not super daunting. I want to talk about Syracuse. Dude, I would play for Fran. And I would send my child to play for Fran. Like, he is that kind of guy. And I'm with you. I think in some ways they lost a ton of talent, okay? And they had a magical year last year. And it's how quickly can you turn over that roster. I think the thing that Fran's got going for him is, man, I think he's building culture. And culture is not turnover dependent, It's like, and part of building culture is bringing kids in who fit into the culture. And I think Fran's going to be great at that. So I don't think there will be many expectations around the Syracuse program this year because of all that they lost. But I agree with you. I think they're interesting. Let me give you my most interesting team in the conference, the Duke Blue
Okay.
Devils. They were a thorn in a lot of people's side last year, and they go out and get what you could argue was maybe one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the portal, right? And, dude, I just think they're interesting. Duke is interesting. They played good defense last year. They lost, let's see, Miami thumped them, but they lost by a point to SMU. Remember that game? They were winning the whole game.
Yep.
They lose by a point. They lost 24-14 to Georgia Tech. Like, they were in it, man. And they played good defense all year. And defense travels. But, like, they go out and get Darren Mensah from Tulane and paid him up. Big old bag of money. But, like, I don't know, man. They're interesting to me. And they have a very, I think, prove it is probably the wrong word because it's early. But they have a measuring stick game week 2. They play Illinois at home. And I think Brett Bielema's team, when we talk about the Big Ten, I think they're an interesting conversation.
Yeah,
because I think he is a guy where maybe more so than, I don't know about saying that. He was a good personality fit at Wisconsin. And I think he's an excellent personality fit at Illinois because that's been a football program for a long time but hasn't had an identity. And he's very clear on what the identity is. We want to punch you in the mouth. And so I think that's going to be a fun game week 2. Everybody's talking about the week 1 slate. I mean, week 1's going to be fantastic. But that week 2 slate's pretty fun too. There's some fun matchups in there that I don't think a lot of people are tracking as fun. Duke, Illinois amongst them. Like, I think that will be an interesting game given what those 2 teams were last year. So anyways.
Well, it's because there's not a lot of sex appeal in week 2 like there is in week 1. That's the reason.
Yes.
It's the hard-nosed football fans that see the Duke Illinois games and get excited about that.
Where are you sitting on SMU? Like, dude, they're bringing Kevin Jennings back, but
they
Kevin
lost
Jennings,
a ton.
Oh,
They lost a lot, and
they lost a lot.
Their coach is not doing them any favors.
Well, Rhett Lashley's an interesting cat for sure. I mean, yeah, but I think Kevin Jennings, if they can tap into his ceiling, he probably has a higher ceiling than any quarterback in that conference, Cade Klubnik included. I just think the things he is able to do, man, he's tantalizing because you watch him and you go, oh, he's like this far away, you know.
He's so gifted athletically.
Yes.
That he can make almost every throw on the field. So I just don't know. They're not going to sneak up on anybody this year. That's the issue. Last year, they kind of snuck up on some people, and their schedule was very favorable last year. This year, what are they this year? Like right in the middle of the pack schedule-wise.
So their schedule, they sit.
They go to Clemson, Miami at home. They got Louisville at home.
Their conference schedule is not terrible at all.
Syracuse, I mean, going to Syracuse, even though Syracuse has lost a lot, going to the Carrier Dome is never fun. Even though I don't think it's called the Carrier Dome anymore.
I mean, look, they got to play Louisville, Miami, and Clemson. So, like, they're getting the top of the conference. But I'm just of the opinion, like, you got to play the games that are in front of you. So, top of the conference or bottom, go out and do it. Like, I just think that's where it sits. Dude, the Florida State team is interesting to me because if you go back and look at their schedule last year, their offense was putrid. Like, it was horrible to watch. But their defense bad kept games tight than they probably full there was. And so you kind of think, like, well, maybe with what they added, maybe with Gus calling plays, if they can score some points, man, they're interesting. I don't know what their culture is right now. I really don't. Like, I don't know what the Florida State culture is right now, which is crazy when you think about what they were in the 90s and early 2000s to kind of now where it's like, they're just not a program you fear currently, which
Yeah.
that's weird if you grew up like we did, where they were just dolly-whopping people and had talent up and down the roster. And it's just, they're hit or miss now, which is wild.
They were putting out people like Alabama in the NFL. Like, rosters were littered with Seminoles.
Yes, exactly.
Like I said, I think Norville's fighting for his job, and that can go one of two ways. That can make a team extremely dangerous, or that can lose the locker room quick. Like, I mean, what is it? They play Alabama week 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and Castellanos won't shut up.
Yes.
Like, I mean, this isn't Saban's Bama, but this is still Alabama. This is still a very talented roster. Might be the most talented roster in the country. This reminds me a lot of that USC team that came out just like idiots. What was it, like 2015, 2016 in Atlanta?
The dance and everything. Yeah.
And like they were on dog leashes and stuff and just got beat by like 40. I think that was the Blake Sims team. This whole scenario is reminding me a lot of that. I mean, I could be completely wrong because it's so hard to tell with so much turnover every year. But this Florida State team, like, I feel like there's your quarterback shouldn't be saying this, and the leadership starts at the top, and that makes me feel like that leadership in that locker room is not a lot. So I think this might be a rough year for Florida State again. Like, we're talking like 5-7 to 7-5 type, even though their schedule seems pretty favorable. But are we talking like they're one of the top teams, or are they one of the bottom teams?
Yeah.
So
here, let's talk a little bit. I know we talked about it a little bit last episode, but we didn't talk about the team that much. Let's talk about that Carolina team for a minute.
Okay.
Because, look, say what you want about Bill. And the offense, let's just say, remains to be seen. But he knows what he's doing when it comes to defense. And, like, I just feel like they got a bunch of guys in the portal that can play. They obviously lost Bo Atkinson, which is a huge loss. But I feel like defensively they're probably going to be fine. Like, I feel like they will be just fine defensively. And then, man, offensively, we talked last episode about the Max Johnson thing. I don't know that he is actually going to be healthy and ready to rip, but I don't know that they need him to be, because part of the big offseason plan is you go out and get probably one of the other more notable transfer quarterbacks in the portal with Gio Lopez, who had a fantastic year last year at South Alabama. So I think you got a guy playing quarterback who, I'm just assuming here that Gio Lopez is going to be the guy behind center for the Tar Heels. You have a defense where I think Bill will have that taken care of. I think they're going to be competitive. Their schedule, they get Clemson at home. They play, I mean, that's it, dude. They miss Miami and Louisville on the conference schedule. So they're going to have a chance, I think, to be in the mix. Really, man, they're out of conference isn't bad either. They play TCU at home to open the year. And then they play Charlotte and UCF. Like, they're kind of going to have a nice runway until they get in the conference schedule. They come off the bye week to play Clemson at home. And then they have a bye after the Clemson game. So, like, they literally have this 3-week bubble where it's just Clemson. I don't know. And again, who knows? It's been a circus there in the offseason from a PR perspective with his girlfriend and all the stuff that's been around that. But, like, just football-wise, he's won a lot of football games. So,
yeah. And him as a coach isn't what worries me. It's him being able to coach 18 to 22-year-olds.
Yeah,
these aren't professionals. These are college kids. And I know these college kids get a lot of money these days, but these are still college kids. And that's where I'm not. That's my biggest thing. If he can find a way at 70-plus years old to relate to these college kids, I think this team could do amazing if he can find a way to get them to gel. But I just don't know. I mean, that's a big age gap. I mean, we're talking what, 3 generations there. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. We're talking
Yeah,
a boomer trying to relate to Gen Alpha or whatever the hell they are now. I don't even know.
It will be, as the media does, if they start 4-0, go into their bye week 4-0, and they're going to host Clemson, homie, game day fixing to be in Chapel Hill. Like,
they'll be like Colorado when Colorado played Oregon.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is all, I guess, assuming that Clemson takes care of business and beats LSU, which I don't think is a foregone conclusion at all. We'll obviously talk about LSU in the SEC preview, but
for the record, I do.
You think they're going to beat LSU?
It's week 1. Yes, Brian Kelly cannot win week 1 games. He has proven that.
That's fair. That's fair. And dude,
if this was any other week, I would pick LSU. Since it's week 1, I'm taking Clemson.
Dude, I feel like somebody should have brokered some agreement for this game that whoever wins
gets Death Valley.
Gets Death Valley for the year.
Yeah. I think they should play every year for it. The
other team can still use Death Valley, but they have to call it Little Death Valley.
That's spectacular. Something like I like Little Death Valley. Death Valley Junior, Death Valley Light.
I think it should be the battle for naming rights for Death Valley. Let's put something in the pot here, boys. All right, one more team I want to ask you about, and then I'm gonna get you to give me your conference championship picks and conference champ pick for the ACC. But talking about Pitt a little bit. Pitt starts off the year last year on an absolute heater, and then completely implodes. It's funny to see. I want Pitt to be good, mainly because I think they probably have top 5 most electric uniforms in college football.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I love their uniforms. That's what I can say about Pitt.
Unbelievable uniforms. Plus, they are also in, and I think it's yours too. Let's just say one of the show's most favorite rivalries in all of college football. The Backyard Brawl.
Oh, the Backyard Brawl, yeah. The Sweet Caroline Eat Shit Pitt is one of my favorite things. I cannot listen to that song without saying Eat Shit Pitt ever in my life. It's awesome.
Yes, that game, it's one of my favorites. So, again, for all these reasons that really have nothing to do with football, I want Pitt to be good. And look, man, I think they've got some talent on that roster to do it. It's just
their schedule's brutal.
Their schedule is not great.
But it's set up just like last year. It's all back end heavy. They're probably going to start off really well, get in the top 25 again, and then fall off again because all their tough games are after October, in the middle of October on.
Yeah, because look at this. They open with Duquesne in Central Michigan, so 2-0. Then they go.
They have the Backyard Brawl on September 13th this year?
Yes. They go to Morgantown and play the Backyard Brawl. Then they get a bye, and then they play Louisville at home, which that's going to be their measuring stick game, is they play Louisville at home, or what we assume is going to be the measuring stick game. Then, dude, you get BC. You got to go to Tallahassee, which, again, we talked about. We don't exactly know what the Knowles will be. Then you go to Syracuse. You got to play NC State, and you play Stanford. So, given how everything's being prognosticated, they're playing a lot of the back end of the conference. So
they theoretically could be have one loss there.
Yeah. I would have them, as we sit today, I'd have them probably winning all those games except for the Louisville game.
We'd talk to reconvene about Syracuse, depending on how Syracuse is at that point. If that was at Pitt, I'd say Pitt. That's an easy one for Pitt. But at the Dome,
I'll also save to reconvene on FSU, just because I have no feel for what they're going to be. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's just they're an interesting team. I think that they could be a thorn in a lot of people's sides in the ACC if they play like they're capable of playing. So, anyways, I know we didn't talk about all the teams, but I feel like we touched on a good number of them. So, Where are you sitting? If you're picking who's going to play in Charlotte today in August, who do you think's ending up there?
Before I give this pick, I want to give a shout out to a local product, Damon Claiborne, running back, kick returner for Wake Forest. If you get a chance to watch the kid, he's absolutely electric. So, played at King
Should we
William High
talk about
School.
Wake?
We can talk about Wake. Let's talk about
All
Wake.
right. My in-laws live in Winston-Salem. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law live in Winston-Salem. My nephews live there. Let's talk about Wake because I do think they're interesting. I think Jay Dicker's a good coach.
Yeah, he is.
And I think that Wake is an interesting ecosystem. I read an article. It's interesting. We're talking about this. I read an article maybe a week or two ago talking about last episode, our favorite things we read. This would go on my list. Read an article. The guy was trying to say, who is going to be this year's Indiana? Meaning somebody who we haven't thought of, somebody who's not a traditional football school, somebody who is essentially going to come out of nowhere and foist themselves onto the national scene. And so, dude, he picked Wake Forest. He's like, Dickert's a good coach. He's young. I think the culture will be good. They've got enough guys, and the schedule is not terrible considering how it could have been.
Oh my God, it's not bad at all.
No, it's really not bad. If they can just be, I don't want to say manageable, but dude, if they can just not screw it up, they really don't. I mean, you get no Clemson, you get no Louisville,
no Miami, no Pitt, no Syracuse.
No Syracuse.
Basically, every team we talked about, they don't get. They get Florida State and Duke.
So I just think there's maybe something to that. And let's also talk about this with Wake. Tell me if you know who their offensive coordinator is or not.
I do not know.
Their offensive coordinator is Rob Ezell, who you probably have no idea who Rob Ezell is. Just go into YouTube and type in Nick Saban player impersonation.
That guy?
He's the kid from the locker room that talks about, if y'all can't figure this out, I'm going to go to my lake house. I'm going to sit with the ducks.
Oh, my God.
That guy. He is the offensive coordinator for Wake Forest this year.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. That's my Wake Forest fact for today. That's what I got for you.
Well, that took a left turn after just wanted to give a shout out to a local kid.
Well, there it is. That's what we're here. This is what you'll get from this show, folks.
Yeah, no kidding.
There are no straight lines here.
I'll give you my pick. So, as I said last week, I didn't think you'd be happy with it, but you might be now. So after talking about it, so I've got Louisville and Miami, and I've got Louisville winning.
I think that's a good pick. I mean, I think if that happened, the matchup and the champion, people would not be surprised. To be honest,
I think Clemson they have a lot returning, but they weren't dominant last year. They weren't dynamic last year. I didn't see anything that was like, oh my God, I love this team. Like, if there was nothing that stood out to me last year, I think it's gonna be a lot of the same this year. It's gonna be a lot of tooth and nail games.
Yeah. So your Louisville pick obviously hinges on Brian Brom doing what Brian Brom does. And exactly. That is getting the ceiling out of Miller Moss.
Yes.
And I'm a little nervous about that just because – and look, man, maybe it was not a personality fit. Maybe and in some ways I could kind of see that. I think because, dude, isn't the guy that took over for him last year the guy that is – I don't want to say his last name wrong. Jaden Maiava? Because I always want to say Maivia,
yeah.
but it's not. But it's not that.
But it's not. Yeah.
It's Jaden Maiava. Am I saying that right? Anyways, I'm probably saying that wrong. Y'all will learn I am bad with names. But dude, he was at UNLV. He was a hot transfer commodity. Georgia thought they had him in the door.
Yeah.
And then he left turns and goes to USC. And dude, he ended up starting the last 4 games of the year with USC and went 3-1, and that essentially sealed the deal for Miller Moss splitting from LA. And so I say all that to say this. Lincoln Riley's supposed to be the quarterback guy, right? Like, he's supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. 3 Heisman Trophy winners. His quarterbacks, I think, every year except last year were the number one quarterback efficiency when he had them. So, like, that's what he does. And so for a kid to not be successful, obviously lots of factors, but it makes me a little nervous. Now, different ecosystems, different schedule, all the different things. So I think Miller Moss has a shot, all the tools. I don't know, man. And I don't know how good Louisville is going to be on defense either, which always gives me a little bit of pause. So for that reason, I am going to have Clemson in the ACC title game. They do have experience coming back at quarterback, which I always like. And I think Klubnik's at the point where it's kind of shit or get off the pot, right? Like, he's got to be the guy. And so, yeah, I think he's going to – I like that kid. I like how he plays. He's tough. He fights. And he's a good player. So I'm going to believe in them, and I'm going to believe in their defensive front. So I'll go Clemson.